Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Bowmaster619 here. It is currently 9:22 here in colorful Colorado. I know it is quite, and I do apologize for that. Of all things, I actually had to put in an extra shift today because I'm going to be off next Saturday, and I needed to make up a few hours. So I legitimately forgot about Storytime tonight, so I do apologize. But, as promised, as you saw in the thumbnail, we have Survival Plants of Colorado Volume 1. So I figured very briefly we can go ahead and cover a few different plants out of this book. Interestingly enough, last night while we were out in the backyard taking care of some chicken problems, if you can believe that, I actually saw a plant that was very similar looking to fireweed, but it turns out that fireweed does not grow below 5,000 feet of elevation. Or at least if it does, it's extremely rare. So whatever I found does look similar to fireweed, but it actually is not fireweed. As of yet, I have not been able to actually identify it in this book because I haven't taken a terribly large amount of time to actually look through it. But, it is what it is. And an interesting little fact is that I actually found out that quite a few of the berries that a lot of people are common with, or know well, whichever terminology you wish to use, are members of the rose family. So strawberry, raspberry, different plants like that are actually members of the rose family, which I found quite interesting personally. Perfect, here we go. So just briefly, let's go ahead and read off members of the rose family. We have apple, hawthorn, serviceberry, mountain mahogany, rose, obviously, potentilla, raspberry, salmonberry, thimbleberry, chokecherry, plum, sand cherry, pin cherry, mountain spray, and strawberry are all members of the rose family. So, there's a little bit of information I'll bet quite a few of you out there didn't know. So there are actually quite a few different plants included in these books, and as much as I hate to admit it, I have not had a lot of time to actually read through most of these, which I do definitely feel bad about. And I know I definitely spend quite a bit of time sitting here going, I need to read more, I need to do this more, I need to do that more, I need to do a lot of, insert here, more of this, but a lot of times I just don't, so. And I know a lot of people out there say, well, you need to make the time. It's like, do not give me that line. Do not give me that crap in the slightest. The other day, I did work on my Atlatl dart. As you can see, I did add a little bit of decoration to it. However, this wound up. I wound up breaking off right at one of the very slight burn marks that I made in the stick. Now that could, in essence, be simply a flaw in the wood itself, which is very possible. Which is more than likely the case, actually. It could have been the burn marks that I put on there, because basically what I did... Just a moment. I took my torch here, and I burned these very briefly onto the stick. I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to compromise what's left of my shaft here, but basically, I just took this and ran it very briefly over the wood enough to leave these marks to give it a little bit of decoration. And it just so happened to break right at one of the burn marks, so that could potentially have been because of the burning itself, or more than likely, it was just a factor that the part of the shaft right there was compromised and not very good. but it is what it is. So tonight I am enjoying a little bit of a drink, as is more or less customary for my story time. And tonight, I'm a little ashamed to actually show you the bottle because it's so low, is Ace's High Whiskey, which I cannot quite remember if I've shown in a recent Storytime video or not. But it's from Mystic Mountain Distillery in Larkspur, Colorado, and personally, I have to say that this is probably one of my personal favorite whiskeys out there. Now, I know I said that for quite a few different ones that I have, and there's nothing wrong with having a fairly large list of favorite items. In my opinion, just because you have favorites of something doesn't mean you can't have multiple favorites. That's just my opinion. I have not done a Spirit Saturdays review of this one, but it is very smooth. Honestly, I've had so many drinks so far that I can't really tell you much about the flavor of it alone, but earlier it had a very slight chocolate note to it, which is interesting considering the color. As you can see here, it is extremely light. It's a very light amber color. Looks a little bit like uncarbonized beer, honestly. But funny enough, it's actually one of the less inexpensive. Trying to think of the proper terminology to use here. Forgive me. It's one of the more inexpensive ones comparatively. By which I mean that one of these bottles, before tax and everything, is $23.99. Now, where I live at least, with tax, that equals up to a little over $26. But, as far as most whiskeys go, at least the fairly decent ones, that is a little bit higher on the spectrum for price-wise. Now, some of my other ones that I happen to have here, such as the one from Spirit Hound, the Cask Strength Single Malt Whiskey, and the Breckenridge High Proof. The one from Spirit Hound is a small bottle, which I have shown in previous videos, and that little sucker cost me $40, so I am enjoying that one very slowly, because it was the last of only 3 bottles left from barrel number 15. So essentially, once that one is gone, so is all of barrel 15, because another customer that was in the distillery at the time that I believe, purchased 2 of those bottles, the last 2 remaining after I purchased one myself. So, allegedly, if he did purchase those and he decided to actually drink them, then once that one is gone, that is it for that particular batch, which is kind of sad, but, that is the way of the world. Up there, I also have some Breckenridge High Proof, which I got on my last trip up to Breckenridge, which, ironically enough, as you guys know, was also when I got these, and one of that amazing hike with Cattail Hub, and learned about some of the different wild plants that are available up in the Rockies. That was such a fun day. I wish I would have actually recorded some of it, because it was amazing, but I didn't have his permission to record, so there's a good chance I may have gotten in trouble for trying to actually record the session itself. But, it is neither here nor there. I myself am not an expert on all the different plants that are available up in the mountains. I'm not a botanist by any means. I would love to take more classes on that, but as it is currently, I am not a botanist. But in other notes, in regards to wilderness survival and things of that sort, I did thankfully get a refund on one of my high-pressure pumps that I ordered recently that did not work. Again, I do not know if it is the pumps themselves or if it is actually my Benjamin Bulldog, since I did buy that one, I guess you could say, partially used from Cabela's. I'm actually halfway tempted to contact Crossman and see if it still has a warranty on it, and if so, send it to them to see if there is actually any kind of issues with the gun. I don't believe there is, because when I did purchase it, it did still have a little bit of air pressure in it. So when I pulled the trigger, it did release that air, but so far the 2 pumps that I purchased were not able to actually fill up the air gauge at all. So one of them, thankfully, I did get a return on. I got the refund for it, which I got back into my PayPal, and it didn't go to my PayPal credit. So if anyone knows anything about PayPal, let me know how I can possibly put that credit towards my actual payments, because that would be nice. But the other one, that's been a bit of a nightmare the whole time, honestly. I sent it back right away, and they kind of jumped me for not waiting until they provided a solution, as they said. But they weren't really trying to provide me a solution. They were basically just saying, well, can you fix it? Can you do this? Can you do that? We really don't want to give you a refund or have you send it back. But I sent it back to the China address that was on the card, and they weren't too happy about it. So currently, I don't know if I'm just SOL or what the case is. Currently, I'm still out $45. I am looking into possibly purchasing a genuine Benjamin high pressure pump to see if that actually works with this gun. It's supposedly supposed to go up to 3,500 psi, which I believe is about the limit in this one. I believe you're only supposed to fill it up to about 3,000 psi, so obviously that would do the trick. But at this point, I just want to get a daggum pump so I can see if this thing actually friggin' shoots, because if it does shoot, and I can just carry that pump around, if need be, if I don't wind up getting any kind of an air tank to go with it, then, that way I can just carry that in the woods with me if I go on any kind of a long-term hunt or long-term hike or camp session or anything of that sort. Because I believe I may have covered this in a past video, or else it was one of the videos that never actually wound up seeing light, so to speak. Which is unfortunate, because I had quite a few different videos recorded that never actually wound up getting uploaded. But at the same time, they weren't exactly the best quality, and I didn't have all of my information straight like I want it to be, so they never wound up actually getting posted. But point being, what I have said in a past video, or if I have not, I will say it now. In my opinion, the big bore air gun is one of the most versatile projectile tools you can actually take with you into the wild, as long as you have the air for it. Now, if you have one such as my Steel Eagle, which is a piston-powered air gun, you don't have to worry about needing a pump or a scuba tank to fill the thing up. Obviously you just cock it, and then you shoot. And mine is a 22 caliber, and it is fairly accurate. I mean, the scope on it does leave a little bit to be desired. I mean, it was a scope that was included, so, I can't complain much about that. And frankly, it is a fairly decent scope. It's just not the best one out there. And it's also been said in numerous big bore airgun forums, or just airgun forums in general that I have visited. They say that with piston-powered airguns such as the Steel Eagle, because of the reverse recoil and the fact that it is a break barrel, that kind of limits the accuracy for those types of guns. So a red dot sight might actually be the way to go for that thing, honestly. A red dot sight with a magnification system, possibly, because I have seen those. But the scope for now does work, but it always shoots a little bit low and to the left, and no matter how much I tweak the daggum scope, it doesn't seem to ever line up. But since I have that scope, and it is a scope specifically designed for air guns, I can transfer that one over to my Bulldog, and because that one doesn't have nearly as much recoil as that thing does, it'll probably be way more accurate with that scope than the Steel Eagle will be. But that remains to be seen until I can get a decent pump, excuse me as I itch my nose, to actually power it up. Cheers. Because frankly, when it comes to big bore air guns, at least in my opinion, because of the fact that you can change out ammunition very easily by simply putting in a different size and weight pellet, because I have like 4 different kinds of pellets in a little box over here on the other side of the camera, Since you can put different size and weight bullets into a big bore air gun like the Bulldog here, uh, you can actually hunt various different kinds of game with it. If you use the lighter pellets, you can deliver a lot less energy, technically speaking, to smaller game so you don't actually destroy the meat. Whereas if you use the heavier ammunition, such as the 145 grain Benjamin Nosler ballistic tip bullets that they typically include with the gun, those things are capable of taking big game. If you have ever looked up Benjamin Bulldog airgun hunting, if you have ever looked that up on YouTube, you will see that they have taken numerous different kinds of big game animals in Africa, of all places, with the Benjamin Bulldog, ranging from waterbuck and I can't think of every single animal right off the bat. I do apologize for that. But they have taken best buck, waterbuck, warthog, all the way up to red hartebeest, and oryx, I believe, as well as black wildebeest. Now, for those of you that don't know, even though I'm sure a fair amount of you know by now, at least by watching through different Disney movies and such, the black wildebeest is actually a fairly large game animal that is about the same size as an American elk. Which I'm sure most of you that live here in America, especially those of you that live in Colorado or along the Rocky Mountains, know that elk are fairly large animals. So if the bulldog of .357 caliber can drop something the size of an elk, it can take just about anything here in Colorado. I don't know necessarily if I would trust it to take something like a black bear or a moose, but there have been tales of people in past times taking elk, moose, and bear with a 30-30, which I don't think has about the same ballistics as the Benjamin Bulldog, but it probably has fairly close ballistics. I mean, it is a 30 caliber, and it doesn't have nearly as much powder as some of the newer models that are out there. Funny that I say newer, considering a 30-06 is well over 100 years old as well. But you get the point. A 30-30 is very well known as a whitetail or brush gun. Basically meaning that it can take whitetail deer and mule deer, and it is very good for taking them in heavy brush. But there have been people that have taken moose and black bear with it as well. So if the ballistics of the Bulldog and the 30-30 are somewhat similar, at least probably if you use a 145 grain bullet or larger, then more than likely, at least if you are close enough, you could take some pretty darn big game with the Benjamin Bulldog. If I remember correctly from the video I saw, for the black, I almost said hartebeest, black wildebeest, that was about a 75-yard shot. And for any of you that do big game hunting with any kind of modern centerfire rifle, you know that that's pretty close range. You know, a lot of times you'll see shots out to about 300 yards with a modern centerfire rifle for big game all the way up to elk. I've taken 300-yard shots at elk myself with my 30-06. And it is fully effective at that range. At closer range, obviously, it's going to be more effective. But, point being, if it can take something the size of a black wildebeest at 75 yards, if you can get to 75 yards or less with this bulldog, more than likely you're going to be able to drop it unless it is a really big, dangerous game animal. You know, elk is probably about the limit I personally would go with the bulldog, and again, that would be 50 yards or less. Personally, that at least is my personal comfort zone. Now, with one of my 58 caliber muzzleloaders, I would easily take that out to 100 yards, maybe a little bit more if I was, feeling adventurous. Whew, excuse me. Though ethically, I doubt if I would ever take a shot over 100 yards with either of my muzzleloaders. My rifled musket, I have not gotten to actually test the little 3 sights that it has on it, but I'm pretty sure that the 3 sights equal out to probably around 100 yards, 200 yards, and probably around 500 yards if I had to guess. Simply because it has a small iron sight on the back, then you flip that up to a slightly larger one, and the final one you flip up is probably about 3/4 of an inch higher than the rest of them. So obviously that one is built for a much longer range. So if I could actually figure out the proper distance with my rifled musket, I could probably take some longer range shots once I knew what that appropriate range actually was, because a 58 caliber mini ball is guaranteed basically to take out just about any kind of big game animal in Colorado. It could probably take out even a grizzly bear, honestly. Well, Michael Malloy has just started a live stream himself. Cool. That's why your next video is suing a gun. I'm going to assume that David meant using a gun, which, if I can get the pump and get this doggone thing pumped up where it's supposed to be, yes, I would love to have that as my next video. But as it is currently, that's not going to happen unless I can get my hands on a decent pump that actually works. Because so far, the cheap Chinese ones that are right around $50 or so, those have not worked at all for pumping this thing up. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if there's something wrong with the gun, but as far as I can tell, there's something wrong with the pumps, because the first one I ordered had a leak right in between the 2 nuts on the pumping system. Right at the base, where the first part comes up and then comes back down, that's where the air was leaking out of. Which, AliExpress said that I didn't upload the proper evidence for it, which is fair enough because my tablet wouldn't upload any video. If I could upload a video, I would gladly do it, but my tablet wouldn't freaking let me. Probably because of the crappy Wi-Fi we have. Excuse me as I itch my nose again. But it is what it is. So, well, looks like everyone else has probably gone to bed at this point, so I should probably go ahead and wrap this up. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for watching, those of you that have tuned in, and those of you that will tune in the future. Shout out to Daddy Daughter Broadcasting, Aaron, Lisa Lewis, David Macias, LA Beast, and I'm going to go ahead and throw out this random one here, Zombie Go Boom. I recently just spoke with Chuck Murray on Messenger. Yes, we are connected on Messenger. It's actually kind of cool. And, I hope that everything is going well for you guys up there at Zombie Go Boom, if you happen to see this. I don't know if you will or not, but hopefully you will. So, shout out to everyone there. If you don't know any of those channels, please check them out well, I can't say in the description below because they're not there, but just simply look up their channels. They're all amazing YouTubers. Daddy Daughter Broadcasting does music regularly. He also has videos with his wonderful, beautiful daughter, Esanam, and his new fling, as far as I can tell, Mariska. She seems to be an absolute sweetheart as well. Aaron is an awesome guy. He has a bit of a dirty mind, such as me, even though I try to keep it as PG as possible on my channel. And he does quite a few different eating challenges similar to the LA Beast, so be sure to check him out as well. Louisa Lewis does funny videos with her family, and her cats, as far as I can tell. I just said Louisa Lewis, excuse me. Tessa Calloway and Zomblue are 2 different YouTube channels, but most of their videos are on Zomblue's channel. Please check them out so you can see their goofy dogs and see what random things they do. I hope you guys are doing well for whenever you happen to see this in the future. LA Beast, for those of you that don't know, he does amazing different competitive eating videos and various different kinds of entertainment videos. Zombie Go Boom has unfortunately gone a little bit dark as of recently, which is fully understandable because of the adpocalypse that happened quite a while ago at this point. Probably about 1.5 years ago. Close to maybe 2 years at this point. I don't remember the exact date. But ever since that happened, a lot of different channels have been struggling, not just Zombie Go Boom, but please do check them out if you get a chance. They do all kinds of amazing videos. They have tested, well, just check them out, honestly. There's no way I can really describe it in full length because of the various different kinds of awesome videos they have done, but please be sure to check them out as well. If there's anyone else I have failed to mention, I do apologize. Russ, aka Yeah Yes Me, I'm shouting you out as well. Everyday Canadian, I know you're out there. Michael Malloy, he just started a live stream while I'm doing this, so check him out as well. To anyone else, I do very much apologize if I haven't shouted you out. I will be sure to get you in the next one if I can. There's Michael Malloy again, actually, ironically enough. So, either way, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for being patient with my not so good uploading schedule. But until next time, this is Bowmaster619 out. As always, drive safe, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers and take care. A few shots in, that doesn't get any better.